Hello, everyone. Welcome to IDA Screening Series and what is going to be a wonderful conversation about Through the Night with moderated by Crooked Media's Shaniqua McClendon. We're very excited to have you all here. Before we start, I would like to offer up a land acknowledgement. I am coming to you today from Los Angeles, which is on the unceded land of the Tongva and Chumash people, who have been stewards of this land for generations. I would also like to offer thanks to our sponsor, IndieWire, for helping to bring this series to you all, along with media support by KCRW. We couldn't do it without them. And without any further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Shaniqua, and we can get this conversation started. Welcome, Shaniqua.
Hi, thank you for having me. And just thank you so much for allowing me to participate in today's conversation. As was mentioned, we'll be discussing the documentary Through the Night, which explores the personal cost of our modern economy, where everyone has to work nonstop. And today I'll be joined in conversation with with the film's director, Loida Limbai, and the film's editor, Malaika Zuhaili Worrell, and the two people who run the daycare, the 24-hour daycare that's featured in the film, Dolores Nunu Hogan and Patrick Pop Pop Hogan. So I'm really excited to have everyone here today and be able to chat with you all. And I was able to watch the film, obviously, and it really, really just resonated with me. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for creating it. I grew up in a single parent home, two sisters, and a single mother working two jobs. And it's just amazing that these kids had somewhere to go. Me and my sisters were latchkey kids, just kind of taking care of ourselves. With that, I think we can jump right in. When the film started, I'm not sure what I was expecting, but I don't think I was expecting for the children to be such a central focus of the film. When, in reading the description, I thought we would be seeing a lot of the parents working and seeing like what their day to day was. Loida, I'd love for you to just kind of kick us off. When you thought about this film, is that what you intended, to focus kind of on the children and show the lives of the children and the parents, but for us to see so much of the children's lives and how what their parents had to do impacted their day to day? And also, I know you get this question all the time, but just what inspired you to make the film?
Sure. Thank you, Shaniqua, for joining us in conversation, and hello to everyone who is watching. In terms of your question regarding the children, I went into the film mostly interested in portraying the lives and the experiences of Nunu and Patrick and the folks that work at the daycare with them, alongside the mothers. But in my mind, I always knew that the children and the children's experience of this center, this place where they spend so much time, would need to be central to the aesthetic of the film. And so, Malika and I had conversations very early on about, trying to find ways to balance the adult's point of view with the children's point of view, so that we weren't treating the children as just kind of like props or something in the background. This is their world. They're very much protagonists of their lives and of this community as well. And so we did have those conversations. The emphasis for me was more on the parents and the mothers and Nunu and Patrick, but understanding, that the children play a critical role, not only as receivers of care, but just, as I said before, they're really protagonists in the space. So that was kind of a dance that we were doing all along throughout production and through the editing. And then in terms of what inspired the film, I would say, I read an article that featured these tots, which is Nunu and Patrick's daycare. And the article really was looking at the fact that in the US, increasingly people have to work more than one job to make ends meet, and that those jobs often require irregular hours, overnight hours, schedules that change from day to day, and posing the question of, given that reality, who then looks after people's children?
Mhm.
And the article featured these tags and talked about what Nunu and Patrick do at the daycare, what they provide. And it also profiled a few of the mothers whose children attend the daycare. And so I was sort of sitting there reading this article. And as I was reading it, it just really brought me back to my own childhood, because I was also raised by a single working mother. I'm the oldest of four. And my mother worked the night shift. She was a home health aide, worked a low wage job. And so in reading this article, today as an adult, it brought me back to myself at 9, remembering just how hard it was. And more than hard, I think, I saw my mother have to make impossible choices, on an everyday basis, and patch things together for us, and just, have to go through a lot of hardship in order to work, and provide. She worked a 12-hour night shift, so it was, and then thinking about the fact that, all these years later, other women of color, other women that are like of the same community that I'm a part of, are still confronting, the same sort of challenges and hardships. And so just being really captivated by that, knowing that world, also knowing the ways that we do show up for each other, to support each other, like Nunu and Patrick, but also feeling a real sense of outrage at the fact that so little has changed. So all of that, I know it's a mouthful, but that was a lot of what, initially inspired the film.
Yeah. And this question is to you, but also, sorry, but also Malika, if you want to jump in, I would actually love for you to jump in on this. There's obviously a story there. You just mentioned you read an article that introduced you to these tots, but I would love to hear more from both of you about how you decided to tell the story in the film, and what viewers saw as they watched the film, and how you decided to kind of organize everything so that people would come away with whatever knowledge or information you wanted them to walk away with.
I would love for Malika to start, if possible.
Yeah, sure. I was counting on you to start. So, yeah, well, I guess, and Loida, you can definitely add to this. But when Loida first started talking to me about the film project, I think it was always, there were some things that were very clear that Loida shared with me that were very clear from the beginning, which was about taking a kind of verite approach to the film, which means kind of taking a filming approach that was especially focused on just filming everyone within these tots just in their regular life. So not focusing on interviewing necessarily, but just looking at what regular daily life looked like there. And that was kind of one major element. And then I think the other major element that was pretty clear from the beginning was that love was such a big dynamic in this space. And even from the very first day of shooting that Loida did, which she shared with me, I remember just being so struck by how evident and visible that was in so many interactions that were in that footage, and every gesture, and a lot of gestures, whether it was kind of a mother rubbing oil into her son's feet, or whether it was Nunu and the children, or Patrick and the children, it was just, or Nunu and the mothers, it was just so clear. And I think I, as an editor, was very excited by the idea of figuring out what the film language would be to kind of convey and focus on depicting the love and joy in this space, which felt like something that documentary isn't usually kind of used for or relied on in order to do. And so that, I think those were some of the kind of key ideas that we talked about at the beginning, and then as Loida was saying, also the idea that just by definition within the space there were larger questions about society and capitalism that would just rise up and come out of it because of just the need of a 24-hour daycare.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the scene or the image of the mother rubbing oil into her child's foot, because I don't know why that just stuck with me. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know why that is just resonating with me so much. It seemed like such a simple gesture, but yeah, it was so full of love. And Loida, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I would echo that, all of what Malika shared. I think the other piece that was really important for me was wanting to create something that, while it does certainly ask these larger questions about our economy and our systems and labor in the US, that ultimately would be a love story. Because, you know, while we do face a lot of oppression, right, and we are on the front lines of all the sort of brokenness or violence of our systems in the US, we still do love each other every day, right? And we do care for each other. And I know that because I'm a product. I'm here today because of it, right? But a lot of films and stories, particularly in the documentary world about our communities, tend to focus on sort of the big moments, right? Either a big moment of accomplishment or a big moment of crisis, or the struggle, the struggle, the struggle. And certainly there is plenty of struggle in the everyday, but there is also everyday living, right?
Yeah.
And that these things they exist side by side for us like they do for everyone else. We just don't have the benefit of seeing ourselves portrayed in that way, you know, that often. And so, you know, again, as a documentary filmmaker, having seen so many films about Black folks, you know, being harmed or being killed or, you know, fighting, I really wanted to make something that showed us living,
Yeah.
you know, and like caring each other and pouring into each other.
Yeah, and I think you did a wonderful job doing that. We're going to go over to Nunu and Patrick now. You know, just one of the things that just really jumped out immediately in the film was the love that was there. When I was unsure if it was that we were in a daycare, it was just like, man, she really loves her kids. And then you start to see that those are kids who are there because they're staying overnight, because their parents aren't there. And then just hearing the origin story of these tots, how, you know, it just started off as a favor and then grew into something so much bigger. And this may seem like a very simple question, but I guess I would love to know how you found that space within yourself. You have your own children, like how you found that space within yourself to open up, you know, a home to so many kids, to make sure that were taken care of when their parents had to work. And also, when you were approached about this documentary, why did you think it was important to get more of your story out there?
I always loved children ever since I was a little girl down south in Mississippi. I used to take care of my cousins and everybody at the age of 7 and taking care of babies and stuff. I just always loved children. I got one of my girlfriends, one of my children's godfather girlfriend got hurt in a car accident. And I was taking care of her son first. And then all of a sudden it just, you know, I ended up taking care of a lot of other people's children too. And my house was always open to children way before that, even before I became a daycare provider, because I was a stay-home mom, thanks to my husband. I was a stay-home mom, and you know, children would come down to my house after school and different stuff for snacks, or if school was closed that week or whatever, my kids would bring kids downstairs to the house. So kids was always around me at all time. Honestly, I think God blessed me with the ability for kids to be around me all the time. And I'm so grateful to that. And what was the other one you asked me?
Oh yeah, just why you thought it was important to, Loida mentioned that she had read about you in an article.
Oh.
But yeah, documentary is kind
Right.
of a bigger platform, why you decided to share your story even more.
Yes. Well, we was sharing our stories with, you know, like newspapers, magazines, and different stuff. but I don't think they appropriately got it out there the way I really wanted to be out there. They basically told about the daycare and was 24 hours, but they didn't tell about the situations of the 24 hours that parents had to work those crazy hours, and mothers are working 3 or 4 jobs, and daycare providers are not being, they're being underpaid and disrespected and everything like that. And we're just used as glorified babysitters. But, and Lorna called me and uh, asked me about the, would I be interested? And I talked to my husband and got back to her. Of course, I was interested no sooner she called me, because I really got tired of being pushed to the side. I got tired of my parents being pushed to the side, watching them come in, dragging their bodies, and mothers and things coming, going to home at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And we're worried about them getting home because there's single mothers going home by themselves. We don't know what's going on. And so it bothered me. And once again, with all the daycare providers and things that I know, we were so used and abused by, the state and different stuff, and we're not getting enough money and, different things like that. So I definitely wanted to get that out. And when Lorna sat down and talked to me, it was like, I was so happy just to sit down and tell the story. And honestly, she did it poetically. She did it beautiful. She did it exactly the way it was going and what was going on. She didn't write nothing out for us. She didn't have to say, go left. Can you take the kids over there? She did everything exactly what was going on in the daycare. And that's what I wanted to see. I didn't want any fake or false made up stuff. I wanted everybody to see what we was doing and what was going on with these parents and what's going on with the providers.
Yeah. You mentioned the parents, but while I was watching, when you were rushed to the emergency room, something, and correct me if I'm characterizing this wrong, but it felt like you had spent all this time pouring your energy and pretty much working as hard as these parents who have these odd-hour jobs to take care of their children. And then the same way they don't have the time to focus on themselves, neither of you seem to be provided with that. But Nunu, you ended up in the hospital. Do you ever see yourself as in the same shoes as those parents, or do you kind of see yourself differently because you're helping them and not just, being kind of churned in the capitalist machine that we live in?
Well, I always see myself as helper. I always see myself as, I guess, the savior of my parents. And never realized about myself, I had signals, I was getting signals that migraine headaches and stuff, but I didn't have time to take a Tylenol and keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have time to do all of that, go to the doctor, be laid up in the hospital or anything, because I was more concerned of what's going to happen with my parents. If I close down, where's my parents going to go? Where's the children going to go? And I keep forgetting I got this husband of mine that could take over like a rock, you know what I'm saying? But I just never, I was just that person that I was always brought up by my mother, because I watched my mother. My mother gave of herself until she gave her little poor self out. So I was just, my mother raised me like that. And now I see that I can't do everything by myself. I need help. I need to take care of me, because once I'm gone, the mother's still gonna find a way to survive, and they're gonna figure out a way for the children to survive. But I don't work my whole self to the ground. But I learned with going to the hospital and trying to deal with everything that I was dealing with and what I'm still dealing with. I definitely learned to pay a little bit more attention to myself. But still, my babies come first.
Shaniqua, if I may, that's a very interesting question that no one else has ever asked us before. I think we don't think of ourselves as our parents because we're home. We are here. We have our children around us. Yeah. We're in our, for want of a better word, our domain. So while we work longer hours than our longest parent does, because while Marisol might work from, 6 in the morning to 10 at night. We have to work from 5 to 12 or 1, because we have other parents that work maybe from 3:30, like Neely's mother works from 3:30 to 12. So we do work longer hours, but because we work at home, it really never dawned on us that basically we are in the same boat that they are, but we've never been asked that question before. So it does make you think, but yeah, because we work at home, we just don't think of it the same way.
Yeah. Something else that really made me angry in the film, you hear Marisol talking about her boss basically shaming her and saying, your kids are going to resent you one day because you have someone else raising them. And it feels like, and so that was, in that instance, it was someone else critiquing her parenting, someone who could actually give her more hours to solve the problem that she was facing. But then, Nunu, we hear you say, I'm not able to give my children all of what they need because I have these other children around. And then Shinona talks about being just exhausted by the time she is with her children. And it's hard to, muster up what she has, and she does it, but it's difficult. And so, I guess a question to everyone, to Nunu, just kind of, is there guilt there? I think there shouldn't be, people are doing what they can, but how you kind of reconcile those feelings with the work that you're doing. And then for Malika and Loida, just, was that intentional? I guess everything in the documentary is intentional, but did you want people to kind of see the unfairness that especially mothers of color face when they're just trying to do what they can? And sorry to throw so much in here, but just the last thing that I would love to hear from any of you on, if you have thoughts, is about who gets to be, what's deemed a good mother. I think we see a lot of white mothers praised for just being stay-at-home moms, and that's just not an option that's provided to a lot of women of color. So that's a lot I just threw at you. I can repeat it and break it up, but just would love to hear y'all's thoughts on that. And Laura, we can start with you.
Yeah, I do want to say to your previous question, I loved hearing Nunu and Patrick, your own reflection on it, because for me, I know, particularly in this COVID moment, the reality is that Nunu, Patrick, Marisol, and Shinona are all essential workers. And they have been before, right, the pandemic, but now we have this language. Marisol has been working 6-7 days a week throughout the pandemic because she works for a supermarket supplier and is in stores, all over Westchester County. Shinona is a pediatric ER nurse, so quite literally on the front lines. Nunu and Patrick never closed their doors. They're among the few daycares that have remained open because the other part of the crisis is that over 60% of daycares have closed, right, due to the pandemic. But among the few, you have, these tots, and they remained open precisely because they care for the children of essential workers. But the reality is that none of them, these people that we now know are essential. Well, even that I have to sort of complicate a little bit because people use the term essential, and that for them means nurses and doctors. It doesn't mean a childcare provider. It doesn't always include janitors. It doesn't include home health aides, right? It doesn't include the supermarket clerk, who really truly is essential. There are all these people that get left out of that, who continue to be invisible, even as we ask them to sacrifice themselves and their families for the benefit of, society or the rest of us. And these people now, so, okay, we have this language. So even if we got the list right and included everybody, the reality is that none of them are able to sleep more than 2, 3, 4 hours a night. And this has been the reality for a really long time. And for me, it's like, we've normalized this, so it's so normal. And it's such a part of like the American way of life that it's invisible, and to me, it's like, if people can't sleep, like sleep is not a luxury. It's a basic human right, you know? And so this is like how far gone we are in the US. And then we don't have the ability to even see these things because they've become normalized and we're so desensitized. And so when we go to Target at midnight, you know, on a Thursday night, no one really stops to think about like, well, my cashier, you know, where are her children? If she's a mother, where are her children, right? And so there are these people that we depend on who are absolutely critical, who are the backbone of everything, who we have undervalued and disrespected, like Manu said earlier, for far too long. You know, so I wanted to say that because I have thought about that the irony of the fact that none of the folks in the film are able to get more than a few hours of sleep every night. And to the piece about your question with the guilt, that was very intentional. I am also a single mother, and I have 2 young children. I think, you know, they've been popping in and out. You might hear them screaming. They're kind of losing their minds a little bit. But I'm like, it's Friday. It's been a hard week. Like, do you, you know? You know, that I know that there is a lot of judgment and a lot of stigma and a lot of criticism for here you hear them and storming around. Maila in the middle of a response. You know, and I think the part of the reason that I wanted to show that, right, the way that we are criticized, you know, that idea of like other people are raising your children is a really strong one that a lot of single mothers hear, you know, at some point in whatever line of work they're in. And it's a stigma that interestingly, like, is not there the same way for, you know, white middle class, upper middle class women who might be able to have a nanny at home.
Right.
There isn't that same judgment, you know, in the same way. But then it's like, if you don't work and you rely on someone else, if you take public assistance,
Exactly.
well, then you're a welfare queen, right? So it's like, what do you want me to do here? Like, there is no right solution. You know, it's kind of like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't sort of situation. And I thought it was really important to make that visible so that for all the single mothers that watch the film, you know, to see that they're not the only ones. And that, in fact, the reason that they're struggling so much is not because of any, you know, personal failures or any personal shortcomings. It's actually because the structures and the systems are set up for you to fail, right? And so if there's any shame or any guilt, it should be on our society, not on the shoulders of individual single mothers who are literally just trying to do the best that they can for their kids, you know?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Did anyone else want to weigh in? Okay. And if not, you know, you just mentioned where we should be kind of directing our focus or blame rather of why these mothers have had to work so much and, you know, do so much just to barely get by. And, you know, it's mentioned several times in the film, or you can see it the way that the government's not showing up. And so when Marisol's daughter is too old to receive assistance, or, you know, for Marisol to receive assistance to pay for her daughter's, her oldest daughter to be in daycare. And then Nunu, you mentioned that the government kind of comes in to inspect things, but they don't provide financial assistance. And given what happened on Wednesday, I just haven't been able to get it out of my head. You have these people going to the Capitol, attacking the Capitol because they are upset that America, you know, isn't working for them anymore. Things aren't how they want it to be. And something I wanted to ask all of you is, you know, one, how can the state show up better for you all? But just, you know, if you're comfortable answering it, how do you feel seeing these people, you know, making all these claims of injustice and how the system is now working against them, knowing that the people that you all, you know, the people that you featured in your film and the parents that you all serve at your daycare are actually struggling, are actually, you know, the victims of the oppression that that harms so many of us. So yeah, I just would love your thoughts on that. Sorry, obviously I have personal feelings about it, but it's just so fresh on my mind right now.
Can I say something about that? Because it's been on my mind too. And I have to deal with the children and even being the parents talk about stuff like that. I think the people that was doing that Wednesday, they go through the same thing we go through, but they just brainwashed. I know a lot of those people there, they are living the same exact thing that we're living, but their minds is just what somebody can put in your mind to make you do things. You have to be a strong person and have a strong personality to understand what the world is today. And you can't let people brainwash you. And I mean, I'm looking at the people, they don't look like they have on any diamonds or they didn't get out limousines or anything. They wore the same clothes and stuff that we had on. And well, some of the clothes were a little outrageous, you know, they're Vikings and stuff, they're a little crazy, but I just think that they was brainwashed. The sad part about it is those people, they have children and their children are listening and watching everything that they do. And they grow up in the world to become them. And that's what separates the world. When you have people that's like that, and you have people that's trying to come together, but then you have these particular people over here, for some reason in their head, that they are getting so much from this president, and you're not getting no more than I got. You're getting the same situation. You know, you're not getting, he's not handing $1,000 bills and stuff out to you. He's not sending limousines or got you living in a mansion. He got on the television and turned on you, said that you guys are the cause of it. And you know, he's gonna make sure you guys get in trouble, but you was fighting for him. You're brainwashed. You have to be a strong-minded person in order to deal with the world today. You have to have that kind of.
Thank you.
So,
Can I add something to that too?
Yeah.
You know, I think I agree with everything that you said, both of you said, because, you know, and obviously we all have strong feelings about this. It's not the kind of thing that you can't have strong feelings about.
Right.
If you're alive and you have a pulse, like, you should have strong feelings about, you know, what happened. But I also, you know, I see the images and I think it's like, my immediate thought is like, these people, it's easy to sort of put them in like these people category and to kind of set them aside because what they did was so outrageous, right? But, you know, I've been like reading up on the senators, right, like who were trying to vote for the votes to be overturned, right? Or, you know, that supported, they were supporting Trump's claims essentially. And then like reading, you know, a picture of like one of the people there is the son of a Brooklyn court judge, you know, and another person there is like the child of a like Long Island public school teacher, right? Like,
there were
you know,
also numerous CEOs, lawyers. There was like
yeah,
6 to 10 state representatives.
like we
Someone
wanna,
flew there on a private jet. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, like we want to, you know, I think in the media, I feel like is doing this, kind of treating them as some sort of out there faction. But in fact, these are the people that teach my children in a New York City public school. These are the people, the doctors that live on Long Island that are treating me and my family in New York City hospitals and coming with all of their racism and their implicit bias, right? Like bringing all of, these are the judges in the courts. These are the elected officials. These are the cops that opened the doors, all the gates. There is video and pictures and, right? These are our police officers. Like, these are not some wild off faction, you know, and, you know, which I think is just, you know, the US needs to face itself, you know, and not treat these particular people as some sort of anomaly. These people are actually baked in through every structure and every system of the United States. And it's like, as long as we keep trying to be like, oh, this is not who we are, you know, and sort of deny these people and you know, say, well, you know, most white folks are not this, or, you know, wanting to have these kind of conversations that are really about assuaging guilt and making people feel a little bit better and more comfortable. You know, we're not facing the problem, and you can't fix what you can't face. You know, so obviously I have strong feelings too.
And even with that, you brought up the members of Congress who were voting to try to overturn the results. And a lot of those same people are the folks who don't want to pass a minimum wage, who don't want to,
Absolutely.
force places of employment to provide healthcare for part-time workers or other kinds of benefits. So it kind of all starts to feel very intertwined. And I guess the question I have for everyone, and we're going to start to close out soon, what would you tell lawmakers about the parents that were featured in this film, about childcare, about access to healthcare and paid time off? What would you tell them if you got an opportunity to have 5 minutes with them? And Nunu and Patrick, we can start with you.
What will I tell the
Elected officials.
parent, or what would I tell the legislators?
Mm-hmm.
Sit us at the table, because we're able to tell you what we want and we need. And I say it every time. The reason why I say what I say, because it needs to be done. The parents and the providers and even the other workers, low paid, minimum wage people, sit us at the table and we can tell you what we want and what we need, and it will help us to make things work for the parents, for the providers, so parents are not out here working, going, 4 or 5 jobs, going home with their children in the middle of the night. Who knows what happened to them, especially the women. And I have, men, also the single men. We can't leave them out. They
Right.
bust their behind to do what they have to do too. And you worry about them all. I worry about my parents when they go home at night. Sit us at the table. You cannot tell us nothing. You can't tell us how much we need to make things run. You can't tell a parent how much they need in order for them to go home to feed their kids and pay their rent. You can't tell us that. Let us tell you what we need, and then let's negotiate and work it out. I don't know, did my husband have anything to say?
Oh, well, you guys said most of it, which is pretty good. I guess if anything, I'd let them know that a lot of times they complain that there's no one home raising the kids. The kids are left alone. You know, they'll either, again, put a guilt trip on the parents, whether it's mother or father or both, that, you're not raising your kids right. When in fact, again, basically what you're talking about, well, I'm not making enough that I can stay home. Or not that I can stay home, that I can't get home at a reasonable time to properly supervise my child. Again, as Nunu says, sit down at the table to let them know that, you know, give minimum wage, give them help, give them the health care that they need, cut a lot of the red tape out, that a person doesn't feel offended if they try to go to seek help, whether it's for psychiatric care or just to say, hey, I need help today. I need someone to just give me a hand today without feeling ostracized and have a negative impact on them. And in terms of providers, again, helping us, not in terms of more money so we can pad our pockets, but to have a quality daycare. I mean, it takes a lot. I mean, we have sunk thousands of dollars into our business because, again, we feel every child that comes in here is part of our family. And as Nunu says, and it's been depicted in the film, our kids have sacrificed in terms of getting some things, but at the same time, they've also grown and have a better understanding of another human being because they've been in touch and been surrounded and grew up with people from different cultures, white, Black, Chinese, Indian. I think we probably had all races and ethnic people come through our daycare. So they've grown up with that. And it definitely has helped. So at one end, maybe some of the love that we had to split out from our kids to others, but they've gained tremendous experience and love in return from other kids and other parents.
Yeah, and I would also add that, you know, there's the elected official piece, but there's also like us, right? Like regular everyday people. And I do hope that the film can help us understand. Uno talked about being brainwashed, and I do think, you know, we're conditioned by the media and by our popular culture. And as we know, because, you know, there's over 4,000 people dying every day in the United States of COVID, where many other countries around the world have much lower rates, right, of, you know, of everything. Um, you know, it's like the US clearly is valuing the wrong things, right?
Mhm.
And we've been taught to value the wrong things, you know. So I hope that the film, when you see a Nunu and a Patrick and a Marisol and a Shanona, you do, you know, your our own understanding about what actually is important, what actually is valuable also shifts so that we can move around in the world, you know, with that and leading with that, you know. And I feel like in this moment of COVID, there's been a lot of talk about mutual aid. And we have, you know, in many communities, really, we've been left on our own,
Yeah.
right? Like the government has given people, you know, nothing, right? Like
Right.
this conversation is a joke. We've literally been left on our own. And so, you know, I think like leadership is not just the elected officials. Leadership is Nuno and Patrick, who have been providing a social safety net for an entire community over generations now. These are our leaders, are the people that have been taking care of us despite the government, not because of the government, right? So the elected, you know, the elected official piece is obviously important, but it's not the complete picture. And there's a lot that's within our power and within our hands as people and as community members, wherever we might live, you know. So I want to add that as well.
Thank you.
And I just want to add one more thing too. I wish people would stop telling these parents that have to work so many hours and they're working overtime, overnight and stuff, that they're wrong. They're not wrong. They're trying to find a way to take care of their children. And you wouldn't believe the parents that's working all these hours and overnight, they do more things with their children when they get the day off than you, because they're trying to cram everything into one day. Leave them alone. They're doing the best they can. Give them some respect. Stop down talking them and stop mistreating them. They deserve it. They're hardworking parents.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, I think this film just did a really great job of just giving voice to that and showing that, like, you know, just how, you know, it takes sacrifice to show up for their kids, given how much they work, but they still, that's a priority for them. And Lori, something you said earlier about, you know, wealthy and middle class families having nannies, and you know sometimes it's like, you know, a stretch for them to extend themselves to show up for things. So I just, I can't say it in any other way, but the film I think was really great. And so we have to wrap up now, but I wanted to end on a positive note. So I wanted to ask each of you, and hopefully, you know, we can start with Loida. What in the film, what was the moment or scene or image that gave you the most hope about what could come out of it?
Oh, there's so much. You know, I overall, I would say one of the things that's really stayed with me is the way that I witnessed over the course of several years care flow in multiple directions. So yes, Nuno and Patrick are the primary caregivers in this space, and they're caring for the children, but they're also caring for the mothers. The mothers are caring for them. The children are caring for them. The children are caring for each other. There's a scene in the film. It's a super small moment. It's one of my favorite. I have a lot of favorite moments, but where a really young child is telling a slightly older child, Jelly, who is Nuno and Patrick's granddaughter, to blow on her food so she won't burn herself. And he does it. He does the gesture. He's like telling her, like, you know, and he's, you know, just learning how to talk. You know, it's a very young child, and he's like, "That food is hot. I don't want you to get burned. Blow like this," you know. And he teaches her, and that the care, right? That even from the youngest child, like there's care going in all these different directions. And for me, that is a very hopeful thing. And it reminds me again of like, despite whatever madness might be happening, you know, in the big picture or on the macro level in our society, we have loved each other and we have cared for each other and we have insisted on the value of our lives forever and forevermore. And that is what has kept us alive. And so it's like a constant reminder of we know how to do that, you know? So I think it's just about remembering that and leaning into that and valuing that and putting that, like, you know, on as a top priority, you know. And it's really, I think, an example and a model for care, you know, like what if you had a lot of different centers of care for different ages, different needs of the community that were modeled after these times, you know, where there are so many different kinds of needs, different children with different, you know, families and situations and parents with different schedules. And Nuno and Patrick have figured it out for over 20 years. So this is possible. Caring for people is possible. Like there is another way, right? Than the way that we currently do things in the US.
Yeah, thank you. Malika, did you want to offer up your favorite moment?
Oh, I'd echo everything Loida just said. And I guess my favorite moments were the kind of moments that, you know, kind of, as Loida said, there's so many of them, but that really kind of captured that tenderness and that love and that care. And I think the ones that always stay with me and that I take so much pleasure from are these few quiet moments that happen in the film. Obviously, Dies Tots is such an energetic, wonderful space, and there are these moments, these scenes where you get these kind of brief moments of quiet. One of them is during nap time when Nuno and Patrick have kind of like brought all the children together to take a nap, and it is just the most beautiful, peaceful moment. And really one of my favorite scenes. And I think the other one, that there are other quiet moments that happen and very tender moments that happen in the garden. Nuno has a really beautiful garden that she shares and works on with other people who are part of the Dies Tots community. And I think those scenes are also my favorite because they're beautiful and lush and such a powerful metaphor for what Dies Tots is and the community it's created.
Thank you. Nuno and Patrick?
Mhm.
I know it's your life, but if there was anything in the film that just really touched you.
Well, mine was with Diana. The whole film, I love the whole film. It was perfectly done. Um, Tears, love, I seen everything. I got to see actually myself and what I actually do. You know, you never see that, and I actually got to see that. And but Diana, because I remember when she first came, she was like a cactus. She was scared and all tightened up, and then the way she bloomed, you know, and she's just like, that's all of them on my heart. But Diana was like, I had to put her here, like hold her here on my chest and lead her around. And she just opened up, and now she's my little regulator. She's my teacher and everything. And it's just, I don't know, Diana really brought tears to my eyes just to see her just open up like that. I loved it.
Yeah.
Okay, the best part of the film was there's no such thing. um, it's just watching the kids. Just I think it's just knowing that what we've done and what we're doing has changed lives, has increased value, I guess you could say, in children's lives. We probably can count on one hand and less than that the number of children, and we definitely thank God, number one, for everything, that have gone astray, so to speak, you know, maybe have went to jail. I think there might have been one, maybe two, that have actually gone to jail from the whole time that we've been doing that. And that, again, not just from you know, us, but we're definitely a big benefit of that with, you know, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
And we have been blessed and we don't take that lightly. But that's the main thing, is just looking at the film and just watching the different, whether it's the parade, whether it's the prom, just watching them going out and just the smiles on their faces, that at least at that moment in time, each child knows nothing but joy, know nothing but love. And then, you know, watching them grow, as Nunu says about when Diana first came, when Yvette first came, just looking at the pictures on the wall and just watching them as they grow, knowing that, you know, you had a hand in that. And then watching those kids come back with
Yeah.
their kids,
Yeah.
like we had yesterday with one of the earlier kids when we were way back at 32 Coligny. What was that, 30 years ago, 20 something
30
years ago,
yeah.
that came back yesterday with his daughter and wants to start in daycare here. Just, you know, just knowing the impact that we had and seeing that through the film, that years from now, 20, 30, 40 years from now, because we'll still be alive, we'll be raising somebody else's child, grandchildren and great grandchildren.
Well, thank you all for sharing what you just shared. And again, you know, the creating such a beautiful film. I think it really shone a lot of light on issues that a lot of people are being, that are affected by and just actually part of their everyday lives. And so I hope that people can walk away from this going to help make life better for those folks, for all of us. But we are at our end now. So I just want to say thank you again for chatting with me today. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week or weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.